All right, what's going on, everyone? Today we're going to be looking at query strings within Vue.js. Now, at some point as a developer, you're probably going to encounter a query string, whether it be maybe you're building some sort of filtering mechanism, or maybe you're perhaps doing a redirect from an email confirmation and it applies or it sends over a query string, and you need to do something based on the value of that query string. So today what we're going to be looking at is how to add a query string to your URL inside of Vue.js, how to remove that query string if you want to go ahead and do that, and we're also going to be looking at a way to look at that value of the query string, and if it is the value that we're looking for, do something within our application. All right, so let me show you this brief demo here that I built before we go ahead and get started. So for example, we're going to be changing the query string or adding a query string to our localhost URL up here, and it's going to be a fruit. So enter a fruit name. Let's go ahead and do a banana, okay? And if we update this, you'll see that now we have this query string of fruit equals banana inside of our URL. Okay, so if we want to remove this query string, we can hit this button right here, and it's going to remove that. All right. And then what we can also do is I have something in the code right now. If we type in a specific fruit, it'll go ahead and display some text right here. So the fruit that we have selected here, or that is going to prompt this text, is apple. And you can see here it says, congrats, you found the lucky fruit, because what we have in our code is something that's specifically looking for the value of apple. And then with that value, we're going to display this here on our application. All right, so that's what we're going to be going over today. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so here in VS Code, I already went ahead and got the component mocked up for us. So if you want to follow along, I'll go ahead and leave the link to the repository down below in the description. But let me kind of explain to you what we have going on here. So for the HTML, nothing too extravagant. As you see in the demo, it's nothing styled up crazy. It's just a little div with a class of container. We have our title, our input, and then we have this div right here, which we're going to be looking at. If the correct answer is true or false, we'll display the message. All right, and then we have our two buttons down here that are going to allow us to, number one, change or update the query string, and then the other one is going to allow us to remove that query string. All right, and then down here in the data, we have our fruit, we have a correct answer, and we have our message. So the fruit is being binded to this input right here, so that whatever we type in it, we can then pass to update the query string inside of our URL. So the first thing I want to go ahead and do here is open up a new terminal, and we're going to do npm run serve. This is going to spin up our local development server so we can see all the work that we're doing here, and this should only take a few seconds, and there we go. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and open this up. So as you can see here, it is the same as our demo, but if we click on this, nothing is going to happen. All right, so let's go ahead and fix that. So the first thing that we want to do is, let's close out this, is we want to have some way to change the query string inside of the URL. All right, so this is actually pretty simple. So what we can do here is we're going to reference our router. So we'll say this.moneysign.router, and we're going to use the replace method here. Now, if you are going to a different route, you can do push, but since we're not going to be updating our actual route, we're not going to need to use push. We can actually use replace, and then we can pass it an object here, and inside we're going to pass it the value of query, and then we want to then, let's see here, pass it the value of fruit. So we're going to give it the name of fruit. So that's what the query string is going to be. And then we want to give the value of this query string of fruit the value of whatever we're typing in here inside of our input. So what we can do is we can say this dot fruit, and then what we're going to do to ensure we have no user error is we're going to say to lowercase, and that way no matter what they type in, capital, lowercase, it will not matter. All right, so now that we have this, if we head over to our application and we were to type in, let's do apple. If we update that, you can see now we are having the query string of fruit, and it's going to have the value of apple. So that is how we can simply go ahead and update or add a query string to our URL here. All right. Now, to remove it, you probably won't do this too often, but just to kind of show you how we can go ahead and remove this, it's actually, once again, pretty simple. We can actually reference our router here. And we'll do replace, and we'll pass it another object here. But now, instead of passing it a query, what we can do is simply pass it the name of the route that we're currently on. So if we head over to my router here, or the router in this file, you can see that we have one route, and it is the home path. So if we reference this name value here in our replace method here, it'll just go ahead and reset that route. So if we say home, and then scroll over to here, now if we click this button, we should see that this is going to get removed, and it does. All right, so that's how you can go ahead and simply remove a query string from the URL. Now, you probably won't do that too often, but in case you wanted to know how to do it, that is how you can actually remove it. All right, now finally what we want to do is we want to be able to do something based on the value of the query string of fruit that we have inside of our application. Now, this is probably something you'll do more or less of the time when you're looking for query strings inside of your URL. So what we're doing here is each time we have a watcher here on the route. So each time the route is changed, when we update the query string, this is going to run. Okay, and remember from earlier when I went over the HTML briefly, we have this div, if it's the correct value inside of our URL, then we're going to display this message right here. So let's open up our route here, this route function. So whenever this changes, the code inside here will run. And what we're going to say here is if this dot route, so how we can reference the current query string is by saying this dot $route, and then we're going to say query. Now, once we have this, we need to look for the specific query value that we are adding to our URL. So in our case, it's going to be fruit. So we're going to say this dot query, or this dot route dot query dot fruit. And in this example, what we're going to do is we're going to look for if it equals apple. Okay. Now, if that does, what I'm going to do is just copy and paste this code in here to save some time and not write all this out. We're going to say this dot correct answer equals the opposite of whatever it is. So by default, it's false, so this will go ahead and make it true. And then we're going to update our message here to say, congrats, you found the lucky fruit. Now, if it doesn't, what we want to also do here is we want to say this dot correct answer equals null, because at this point, we want to make sure this isn't displayed if a user is trying to go ahead and get the correct answer here. Now, one other thing I want to go ahead and do inside of our query string here is after we change it to prevent the same person from clicking it again and again. So let me show you if we have it just how we do right now. If we go to our console here and we inspect this. So say, for example, we say banana and we update this query string. Okay, now if we update it again with the same value, it's going to get a little bit of an error here. Now, to prevent this from happening, what we can simply do is just say this dot fruit equals an empty string. So that way it'll go ahead and reset that value inside of the input so that we don't get this error, because you can see it says avoid redundant navigation to current location because it already exists in there. We don't want to go ahead and add the same value to our query string. All right, so let's go ahead and remove that, refresh this, and get rid of that error. Now, let's try out our method to say, hey, if we are looking for apple and it's right, display that message. So we should be able to type in apple here, update the string, and as you can see, it says, congrats, you found the lucky fruit. All right, and now if we type in a, let's say an orange, it should then not be displayed because it's no longer the lucky fruit or the value that we're looking for inside of our query string. All right, so that is going to be it for the query strings here in Vue.js. If you guys did enjoy this video and learn something new, I would appreciate a like down below. And if you guys are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.